Here's what the SEC announced yesterday in a step-by-step explanation. Players who have declared for and the draft of the NFL, NBA, or WNBA and did not withdraw can't play. If they sign a contract with the NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA, they can't play. If they've been listed on the roster of an NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA team, they can't play. So they made all those rules yesterday. The president of LSU was one of those who voted in favor of those rules yesterday, while the football coach at LSU was on Pat McAfee's show explaining why he's going to take one of those players, in fact, maybe more than one of those players, and have him on their team this year. It is as confusing as it sounds, so we brought on all of the right people to try and explain it to you. Paul Finebum back with us, and again, Pete Thamel, who covers this stuff as well as anybody could. So, Pete, that's where it begins, all right? First the Big Ten, and then the SEC announced these very strict, clearly defined rules yesterday. So why isn't it as simple as that?
Well, it's never simple, right, Greeny? In college athletics, there's no simple solutions to anything, as we've seen, especially in the last 5 years since NIL came into play. Let's peek ahead, Greeny, to what's next here, right? How is this showdown between LSU and the SEC and between these players and this SEC rule going to happen? Now, players have a very good argument. Their lawyers laid it out to me yesterday on text. It's on Twitter, where basically there is already a state injunction, a state temporary restraining order that specifically says they should be allowed to play. And it generally does account for the rules that the SEC made. So in order for the SEC to do this, they're going to have to go backwards against a state rule. Obviously, that ruling was made in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for a reason, right, Greeny? LSU anticipated something like this happening, and these 16 players, some of whom are going to other schools, including UCLA, all have the wording that seemingly would protect them from some of these rules. The interesting part about that graphic that you popped up about what the SEC is doing is Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, has autonomy to dole out punishments in this, and he was sort of given unilateral autonomy from the SEC presidents yesterday in this case. So what we have here is something we've seen a few times in the last 5 years in college athletics. We have essentially 15 college presidents aligned against one, right? I know Wade Rouse, the LSU president, did technically vote, but LSU clearly is not in favor of this. They want these guys to play. We were 15-1 in the Big Ten in the Connor Stallions case, right? We saw how that ended up for Jim Harbaugh. He was suspended 3 games, but there was tension. It was not easy. It was 15-1 in the Big 12 in the Brendan Sorsby saga. Again, that took a federal court filing for the Big 12 to finally get their way and for Sorsby to not be able to play. So there are clear tension points coming here. There's been no certain declaration of whether the current TRO would allow these guys to play. The lawyers think that Daquan Wright is eligible right now. So it'll be fascinating to see what next steps are from the players' side if they refile for a new TRO to get clarified language, or if they just go and try to play for LSU.
My goodness. So, I mean, Paul, it's all so fascinating that I struggle to even come up with questions. I just want you all to keep talking because I just need to keep hearing about this. Paul, what is your reaction and what are the reactions of the people that you're talking to and hearing from?
Well, here's what's so interesting, and just hold on for a second. Instead of Lane Kiffin calling his president yesterday, he went to somebody far more important. He went on McAfee because he knows the audience is bigger and what people say there is more influential. So, I mean, I think Kiffin is pretty bright here in how he's approaching it. The president doesn't matter. And Pete is so right. He voted that way because he had 15 other people in that room staring him down, and he didn't want to run the risk of putting his entire institution and the money, and I mean the millions that come from the SEC in jeopardy. So he said, yeah, I'll go along with it. We've all been there before, local PTA, fraternities, it doesn't matter. So now I think the real question is, what does Kiffin and these lawyers do? There was some reporting yesterday by CBS Sports, Greeny, that indicated that Kiffin has encouraged all these guys to file lawsuits. Now, I don't know how you can document all that, but it's an interesting aspect of how rogue this story is, how much of an outcast Lane Kiffin continues to be, and the island that the school, LSU, is sitting on right now.
So I have a lawyer to my right, so I wanted to keep Tannenbaum in this conversation. If the players are going to file motions or injunctions or whatever it is one files in a circumstance like this, in English, as close to in English as we can get. What exactly would that be, and what do you think would be the result of it?
Sure, Greedy, as Pete alluded to, they'll go back to that same judge in Baton Rouge and get another TRO, temporary restraining order, with language that says, despite what the conference ruled yesterday, we are eligible to play because of this new, 5-year rule, and therefore we relied on your ruling, Your Honor. We relied on these presumed offerings from Lane Kiffin, and we would be, severely harmed if these rulings weren't enforced. And now I'm sure what the SEC or the Big Ten would do would try to take it to federal court and look for a judge that would enforce their ability to govern their schools.
And at the risk of asking a stupid question, a court ruling supersedes a conference rule, right?
But except for this point, and Pete alluded to this, if you're the SEC or the Big Ten today, you could go to a federal district judge and say, hey, we govern ourselves and we should be able to enforce it. And if Greg Sankey has been empowered by these 16 presidents, then he should be able to govern the conference accordingly.
And do those things happen that fast? These kids could be practiced. So the judge in Baton Rouge could rule on the side of the players today. Yep. Daquan Wright could be practicing and playing in a game as soon as a week and a half from now. The conference goes to a federal judge. Yep. Does that happen in a week? Does that happen in a month?
They'll file today, and they'll try to find a judge that would rule within, there's emergency orders that could come within 24 hours, but you need a judge to take that case.
But could not Greg Sankey then say, as per these new rules, hey, look, you can have Daquan, you know what, Daquan Wright, Xavier Harris, you guys can come play, but guess what, Lane? You're not coaching them. Yeah. You're out. You're fined, and you're getting suspended for half the year. So does Lane really want to keep going down this road? I mean, isn't that a conceivable conclusion here? Pete, that's what could happen, right?
Let's ask Pete. Pete, is that a conceivable conclusion? You sort of hinted at it when you mentioned that Harbaugh got suspended. Could Lane Kiffin wind up getting suspended before he even coaches a game?
So my understanding of the way the TRO is written is that everyone involved is protected from such punishments, which makes this just such a fascinating showdown because there are entrenched sides here. And so, again, the language of that TRO is really going to be parsed heavily in the upcoming days, but it was written with some broad protections in it. And again, it was written before the SEC made these rules. So, again, Mike T made a great point there. The Louisiana judge is likely not just going to say, oh, okay, the SEC made a rule, let's forget it. And there's a legal argument, Darren Heitner has made this, that the way the TRO is written already still protects Daquan Wright's eligibility. He said to me last night, he's operating as if Daquan Wright is eligible to play for LSU this year. That's obviously going to be something that's going to be, in the crosshairs in the upcoming days as this unfolds. But it does just appear that both sides are entrenched. There are clear tension points, and how it's resolved is going to be fascinating.
But do those protections, do they also protect Lane Kiffin from being suspended? As what it sounds like Greg Sankey would have the right to do based upon these new rules.
We're going to find out. I think what he's saying is the answer is we have absolutely no idea. Clarky, get in here.
Yeah, there's a lot here. Number one is Lane Kiffin has done a lot here, but I think any coach knows if Mahomes is eligible, you take Mahomes. Okay, so that's the part of it is you're taking what the rules say you can do for right now, I'd say. I think there's a couple things. Number one, Lewis, you mentioned it, but the ghost transfer thing of last year, which was basically kids jumping in the portal when the portal wasn't open and saying, I'm a college student, I can go from Xavier Lucas, went from Wisconsin to Miami. You don't have to tell anybody, you can just go. They solved that in one offseason by saying, we're going to punish the coach, we're going to suspend the coach for half the season. Nobody even tried it, nobody filed a lawsuit to see if that was even legal. They just moved on. Everybody moved on. So I think there's ways to do it. The NCAA says Congress is the only way to solve this thing. I think the SEC and the Big Ten are doing a pretty good job of governing themselves the last couple of days. We saw this with the Big 12 with Brendan Sorsby as well. There are ways around this. I think that what's interesting to me is when you look at what's going on in college football, Indiana has two guys who are fifth-year guys who were hurt in Stephen Daly's case and weren't able to sign NFL contracts. So they're able to come back, no problems there. UCLA has a guy who tried out for the Browns, wore a Browns jersey. He's eligible because he didn't sign a contract. So there's so much gray area. There's so many inconsistencies that you almost think that Daquan Wright and Harris are going to be able to find the loopholes because of the other loopholes the NCAA has created.
Paul, get back in here. What happens now?
Yeah, everybody's missing the most important factor. In my first job, I covered LSU. I lived in Louisiana. Mike T., you lived in the state, so you will be nodding your head. You can find a judge in the state of Louisiana. I guarantee it. city, state, it doesn't even federal. Hey, federal judges are appointed by states, by senators from that state. So I don't think right now I'm not an odds maker, but I'd make the player the favorite here and Kiffin the favorite over the SEC, because there is someone in Louisiana that will be dying to help this player and Lane Kiffin.
Let me give the final word to Pete Thamel. Pete, go ahead. What else?
Wow.
Is there anything else to fill in here?
I'm glancing at the TRO here, and it says defendant NCAA is temporarily restrained and enjoined from enforcing basically the ghost transfer bylaw. And it includes, very interesting, any NCAA member, institution, or coach which plaintiffs choose to compete during 26-27. Now, that says NCAA, doesn't say SEC, but they clearly already accounted for this in the scenario that they had. So it's not hard to imagine that transferring, if they refile for a new TRO, to the SEC.
Paul?
So you're saying that Lane would be protected from being suspended? That's
if that's the ultimate judicial order, but more to come.
Right. Okay.
Paul, give me a final word.
Yeah, I know that the Clemson-LSU game is scheduled 7:30 ABC a week from Saturday, but I think the most important TV network during all of this is going to be Court TV, Greeny.
That's exactly right. We'll all be following it as close as we can. Guys, thank you very much. Outstanding insight to a story that I think just gets more and more interesting as we go. And
try to knock me off my feet, still standing with more money than I came with. Hot damn, took a loss, but I'm still up. Gambling man, betting all the chips that I got left.